All right. We are fortunate today to have here at Cascade Sports TV one of the bright young stars in the coaching profession. He is an up and coming star, as I stated. He is the associate head coach at the Davidson University in Davidson, North Carolina since 2021. Been on the staff since 2017. And again, a very, very unique story in here in the coaching profession. We are very pleased to have Mr. James Janssen here with us today. Thank you for being a part of this Cascade Sports TV production, James. And how are you today?
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely, we appreciate you coming in. I know the last few days have been hectic with the all the things that the program has been dealing with. We'll get to that a little bit later and whatnot. But first, just let the audience get to know you. I'm sure when they hear you, the first thing they're going to say is he's probably not from Brooklyn. He's probably not from South Texas. He's probably from somewhere else. So tell us about your roots and kind of your story and how you came to us so far.
Yeah, I like to tell people I'm from the deep South, so deep that it's the Southern Hemisphere. So yeah, grew up in Australia. Grew up kind of playing down there and kind of transitioned to coaching pretty early on. So was kind of coaching and playing really from the age of 15. I started my coaching journey, and that took me to the point where in 2012, the age of 26, I made the jump to come across here to the US to kind of explore some kind of college options, and yeah, came over, attended Wake Forest for graduate school, and while I was there, I jumped on board assisting with their women's program during that time, and yeah, I was there for 5 years, and after that 5 years, was fortunate enough that that an assistant coach that I was working with there, Gayle Fulks, was appointed the head coach at Davidson, and here we are now. We're here now and just wrapped up year 7 at Davidson, and yeah, loving it.
Awesome. And you had mentioned Coach Fulks. He's obviously done some great things over at Davidson over the last few years, from a winning and a just a program building standpoint and whatnot. Tell us a little bit of how she's been instrumental in your career, your professional development, and in your growth as a coach.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like when I was kind of arrived at Wake, I was fortunate enough that it coincided with the arrival of a new head coach there, and that was Coach Jen Hoover. And at that point in time, Gayle showed up as a somewhat young assistant coach at the same time, and so we got to go through that journey together, experiencing kind of the highs and lows of trying to kind of build an ACC program there at Wake Forest, and had lots and lots of conversations. Okay, she came over to my house for dinner regularly, and just constantly talking basketball, talking about player development, talking about all things recruiting. While I was at Wake, I was not in a recruiting role, and so we actually had sent her down to Australia on about 6 occasions to go recruit, kind of trying to pull some of the strings of what she was doing. But she went down there and stayed with my grandma and all those kind of things, and kind of, yeah, really had a good time with it. And knew Gayle was someone that had a really, really bright future. Obviously still does have a really bright future in the NCAA landscape. And when she got the job at Davidson, we've kind of always talked about, hey, if we had our own program, what would it look like? How would we go about it? And there were probably only a couple of scenarios at which point in time I was willing to get off the academic track I was on to do the basketball full time. And Davidson was definitely one of those. Obviously, an elite institution, great location, great basketball history on the men's side. Obviously, going back 60, 70 years now. And so it was a spot that I felt really comfortable with the idea of joining her at. And so we were able to kind of co-create some of this together in terms of what we wanted our playing style to look like, what we wanted the identity of our program to be, what we wanted the student athletes to look like that come here in terms of recruiting heavily internationally as well. And yeah, it's been really special to be in a program where I've been able to be part of that journey with her every step of the way, and she's given such great autonomy or such great say through that step, which is really special. I don't think there'd be many coaches that would be willing to be such great partners in this experience as she was, and we've learned and grown through this together. And in a really exciting spot where we've taken this program, I think, forward in a direction that we've wanted to, and obviously had a really impressive start to this season before some hiccups. But I think where we're at now is we've changed what Davidson women's basketball is expected of from people, and I think we've put our stamp on it.
Absolutely. The lifeblood of any great program is recruiting. Like you said, you weren't always part of the recruiting process at Wake Forest, but you are vitally involved in the recruiting process now. And you guys have developed quite a pipeline. And like you said, international recruiting, some really talented players. Susie Issa, among others, who I know have come over across the water, across the world, and made major impacts on the Davidson women's basketball program. Will be known probably as the foundation blocks for as it moves further and further and continues the success that you guys have had. Talk a little bit about some of the players you brought over, some of the experiences that they've had, and how that has helped shape the program that, not like you said, not only that you become, but that you hope to continue to grow to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things in recruiting is you're always trying to find areas that you have an inherent informational advantage, or there's a part of your institution that really lends itself to recruiting a certain area or a certain group. And I think for us, we came to a location that had a really long history of international student athletes on the men's side. Like Coach Bob McKillop had been doing that since his days coaching Lehigh in New York City back in the late 80s, having international players and getting to the point where he's had 50 plus international players during his time at Davidson. So that had always been part of what this institution was about from the men's program side, and leverage that to endless success in the SoCon level and the A10 during his era. So we kind of saw that as a unique opportunity of being like, this is a place where the infrastructure is really set up to support these student athletes. And obviously the connections that we had in Australia, we were like, that's a really logical place for us to get started. And we were able in our very first class to bring in a player by the name of Cassidy Gould, who was just a really tough kid, really was just such a great leader, had experience playing against grown women prior to getting here, and was really able to kind of set the tone from her freshman year of what we wanted this program to look like. Along with the rest of that class, we had two Americans in that class as well, but they were all our kind of people that we wanted this to look like. And from that point, we've been able to kind of really kind of mine like heavily talented players from Australia. We brought in the next class Rosie Deegan, who was a really talented scorer. She was actually the second leading scorer at the first ever 3-on-3 Youth Olympics, which when you look at the list of names that were on that USA team that she was part of, like Aaliyah Boston was number 1 scorer at that event. She was number 2. Number 3 was Haley Van Lith. Number 4 was Paige Beckers, right? So had a pretty good event, right?
Not bad company to be with in today's.
Yeah, clearly put the ball in the hoop. So she won a bronze medal at that event. Came to Davidson. We knew she could score the basketball, and she was able to do that from day one. In kind of being awarded the A10 Rookie of the Year, and was actually, I believe, the only player in the last 20 years in the Atlantic 10 to be a freshman on the All A10 first team, which when you're dealing with a division, or sorry, a conference of 14, 15 teams now, you got 6 players on that team from day one to be one of the 6 best players in your conference at a really high level mid-major league. Like, that's a really big deal. So brought in Rosie in that class, also brought in a player, Adelaide Fuller, in that class as well, who's a 6'3" post player who spent most of her career starting for us as well. And really kind of, I think that set the credibility, both the success that Cassidy had. Cassidy had several really big games. She was actually Rookie of the Week. I believe it was the week we beat Clemson, our second year here. We're a tournament team that year under Amanda Butler. And so we were able to kind of establish that credibility that we were kind of able to provide some opportunity to these players fairly early on. We played a style of play that was really conducive to what they were coming from, and that's a really big part of us recruiting the internationals, is just their experience that they have either playing on the international level, if they've played that, or playing against grown women. It's a little different than what you're dealing with playing high school and AAU basketball here. And it's nothing against the kids that are around in the U.S. that are doing that. It's not their fault that they're
Coach, you're not going to offend. That's the big discussion right now going on amongst American basketball community. What can we start doing different from the grassroots level, AAU? So many games. Let's how about focusing on skills and practicing and whatnot. And I'm a believer in what you and Coach have done with your program, because you guys, you play the right way. You bring in players, like you said, who've been playing against grown women for a while, and it shows in how fundamentally sound your teams are, and just how they carry themselves on the court. And like I said, I've been a big fan of the program, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have you on here. I think the foundation, the blueprint that you guys have done at Davidson. I mean, you're right. Lefty Giselle, Bob McKillop, Steph Curry, obviously. There's a great basketball history, but you guys are building your own thing. And sadly, you had mentioned it earlier about this year, some of the hiccups that you had to deal with. Off to a great start this year. I watched you beat Duke, I believe, and then I watched you play Chapel Hill right down to the gun. So, I mean, you told me the offseason you guys are going to be good, and I was like, well, okay, how good? You were slow playing. You didn't tell me how this team is killing it. And obviously, great players, great coaching, stern, fundamentally sound squad, beating ACC teams and the like, beating other Power 5 schools. Talk to us about how proud you were of this team's initial start. Tell us a little bit about why the season ended and kind of where you are and where the team is mentally right now.
Yeah, so as you said, we had a great start to the year, and we felt like we were going to be a really talented team. We've compiled a group that had experience, added some key players to our group as well. We were a little banged up at times last year, like just kind of little injuries that just led to a couple of players maybe not having the best years they were going to have, and we finally felt that everything had kind of come together and put together a schedule early on that was going to challenge us. And as you mentioned, we beat Wake Forest. We kind of, in the span of a week, we beat Wake Forest. We took Carolina down to the wire the very next day at their place. A couple of bounces either way, and we win that basketball game against a team that was ranked at that point in time. And then follow that up 4 days later by beating Duke at their place. And quite frankly, like, we led that game start to finish. Like it was we controlled that basketball game, which is not necessarily how games for mid-majors and high majors go all the time. So really proud of that. And I think that the part that really I think kind of continued to surprise me after that was, like, I knew that we could compete at a really high level, but the consistency of our performances through that 2 months was just really impressive. Like we kind of went through and played some kind of lower conference opponents or whatnot, but the manner at which we handled those games, I think we went a whole month where we won almost every game by 30 to 40 points, and one of those games, and kind of culminating leading into Christmas, beating like UNC Charlotte by I think 28 in that game, and just comfortably doing that. Did that without Ellie Sutphin, who's our preseason all-conference kid as well. Like, I think that really spoke to the depth of talent that we had within our group. And so really rolling, first time in program history, being receiving votes in the AP poll. I think we were team of the week, or win of the week when we beat Duke that week, and up to the point where we're top 40 in the net. Predicted to be an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament, and feeling really good about ourselves, right? Feeling like we'd finally arrived, and that this has been 7 years of hard work that was culminating in this. And then, just a real freak run of injuries that kind of occurred through the months of January and February, and that kind of led to us to a spot where we didn't have really enough scholarship players to be able to kind of put on the floor and compete for a conference championships this week. So I had to make the unfortunate decision cancel kind of 3 of our last 4 games of the season, and in kind of the best interest of the health and safety of the girls that we had, and yeah, led to the point where we just couldn't field a group that we felt was in the best interest for them at the conference tournament starting this week. So very bittersweet end, and I think even where we ended up after all the injuries and everything go on, like we'll still finish in the kind of top 85 of the net most likely in the country, which is still by far and away the best year in Davidson women's basketball history. But yeah, that's sports right now. We're kind of in a spot where we're trying to figure out how to kind of repeat our success for next year.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys made an indelible impression on the basketball community with your initial start to the season. Again, I applaud you. I know that there was, social media people have their thoughts, and you could take that with a grain of salt about finishing the season, this, that, and the third. But I applaud you for doing what was best for your student athletes. It took a lot of courage to make that decision to say, we're not going to put 6 girls out there and play them 40 minutes every game and break them down like, some people might have chosen to do. So kudos, at least on this end, for putting the student athlete ahead of everything else. And I think not only you, Coach Fulks, but the whole, your athletic director, the whole school should be applauded for looking out for student athletes, because that doesn't always happen. I mean, you can't take those kind of things for granted. But again, tough way to end the season. Coach, what's next for Davidson women's basketball? What's next for you? Where do you see this program growing, and how do you see yourself being a part of its growth?
Yeah, I think one thing when I kind of joined this thing, or when we started this thing, was we wanted to see what we can do with it. Like, we felt like there was the infrastructure here to kind of really create something quite special in the mid-major landscape in Davidson. And you've got a school it's a basketball school, right? We're in a basketball school. We're in a basketball league, in a basketball state, right? Like what a better spot, or no better spot than Davidson to try to create something really cool. So we return a really good chunk of our team for next year, and really excited by the kind of additions we have coming in as well. I think we've got some really good talent. We have 3 international players, not all Australian this time. We have 1 Australian, Canadian, and a girl that is from Hungary that's currently playing in Winston-Salem right now.
Wow.
6'4" girl. So pretty diverse, and really, really excited by that class that's coming in, and still kind of looking at rounding out our roster right now for what next year looks like. But I do think we're going to have the talent to kind of repeat potentially the successful part of our year, and hopefully finally get to a spot where we can compete for a conference championship and make an NCAA tournament, and yeah, do some special things and kind of solidify that support that the community has kind of had around us. So really excited for that. When I came here, this was a real goal for Gayle and I to be able to do this and put Davidson on the map. And while we're further along that stretch, there's still a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, you got a fan here. I tell you what, we're going to be watching closely to see not only the new recruits that you'll be bringing in, but just to see how the comeback is going to be even sweeter when that talent is able to get on the court next year and coalesce and do everything that you would hope to do this year. And Coach, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. What you guys are building over there at Davidson is something special. We wanted to expose the world to this little jewel program here in Southern North Carolina that's doing great things in the A10 and everything else. So thank you so much for your time today. Anybody you want to shout out? Anything you want to say to anyone? That's kind of how we always end our show. We let the star talk a little bit. So anything you want to say before? No, I will say this. Your daughter's an artist. I saw some beautiful art on the internet from preschool yesterday that your daughter did. So maybe you want to shout out her for her future artistic talent.
Yeah, well, I think firstly, thanks to you guys for having me on, and appreciate your support of women's basketball. Like, I think these are exciting times in our game, and all the support that we can get to kind of put these stories out is really a big deal. Obviously, we touched on the importance of Gayle in this process, but you kind of mentioned kind of support we had from our athletic director, Chris Clooney, and kind of administration through what we've experienced the last 2 months. And just this is a really, really special place, and just really, really thankful. And obviously, the people really make college sports. That's what this whole thing is about, and that's a really big deal. Same thing with the coaching staff we have. Like, we have such a phenomenal coaching staff here with Jasmine Jenkins, such a young up and coming coach who's just so terrific, understands the game, terrific with our girls. Then adding Laura Barry this year was just such a big deal, coming from her success. I know you saw her kind of the remnants of her program last night with Watauga, with your daughter, but just a really bright coach, really knows what she's doing, and was just so thrilled to add her. And the kind of the help we've had from Ryan Border in the process this year, and our staff too. So I think we have a really special group, and big shout out to them. And you mentioned the family piece, and I think in this industry, I put this on my post last night, but the college game and coaching and really any sports is just really hard on families. And yeah, they do an incredible job to kind of keep us together through the season. And yeah, very special. And I'm glad to get some extra time with them over the coming months, with it being the off season. But very fortunate to be in the situation we're in.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach Janssen. This is James Janssen, Associate Head Coach of the Davidson Wildcats, and we are so thankful to have him here. And we appreciate his time, Coach. Thank you so much.
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.